Forgiveness is one of the most liberating experiences a human being can have, yet for many it feels like the hardest thing to do. When we hold on to resentment, anger, or bitterness toward someone who has wronged us, it is as if we are carrying a heavy weight everywhere we go. That weight drains our energy, clouds our thoughts, and prevents us from being fully present in life. Forgiveness does not mean that what happened was right, nor does it mean that we have to accept harmful behavior or allow it to continue. It means that we are choosing to release the grip of the past so that we can experience peace right now. Forgiveness is freedom because it unchains us from a story that no longer serves us. When we are hurt, the mind tends to replay the event over and over, analyzing what went wrong, imagining what we could have said, or wishing for a different outcome. This constant mental replay keeps the pain alive long after the original event has passed. Forgiveness is the moment we decide that we will no longer feed this cycle. We recognize that clinging to anger does not punish the other person. It punishes us. In fact, many of the people we are angry with may have moved on or even forgotten the event entirely, while we continue to suffer. By forgiving, we free ourselves from this inner torment and make space for something new. Forgiveness requires presence. We have to become aware of what we are holding on to. Instead of suppressing anger or pretending we are over it, we allow ourselves to feel the hurt, the disappointment, and even the rage. We witness these emotions without judgment and realize that they are not who we are. They are temporary states that arise and fall within our awareness. As Eckhart Tolle often teaches, when we become the observer of our pain, rather than being consumed by it, a shift happens. We become the space in which the pain appears. This spacious awareness is the beginning of freedom, and from this space forgiveness becomes natural. Forgiveness is also an act of empowerment. It is taking back control over our emotional state. As long as we refuse to forgive, we are giving power to the past and to the person who hurt us. We are allowing them to dictate our emotional reality in the present moment. But when we forgive, we say, I will no longer allow this situation to define me. It is not about waiting for an apology or waiting for the other person to change. It is a decision we make for our own well-being. Ultimately, forgiveness opens the door to healing and growth. It allows relationships to transform, even if only within ourselves. Sometimes the other person does not change, and sometimes we choose not to continue the relationship at all. But we are no longer carrying the poison of resentment. Our heart is lighter, our mind is clearer, and our capacity to love is restored. Forgiveness is not a single event, but often a process, one we may need to revisit again and again until the pain truly dissolves. But each step toward forgiveness is a step toward freedom. It is a gift we give to ourselves, one that allows us to live fully in the present moment without the shadow of yesterday controlling our joy today. Presence is the key that unlocks the door to true forgiveness. When we are lost in the mind, replaying the past and holding on to resentment, forgiveness feels impossible. The pain feels too personal, too deep, and too justified to let go of. But the moment we step into presence, we shift from being entangled in the story to witnessing it from a higher state of awareness. Presence allows us to see the situation not just through the lens of hurt, but through the clarity of now. It reminds us that the past no longer exists except as a memory, and that our suffering comes from reliving that memory over and over. In presence, forgiveness is not forced. It arises naturally because we are no longer identified with the pain. When we are present, we notice how the body and mind react whenever we think about the person or event that hurt us. The stomach might tighten, the heart might race, and thoughts of anger or revenge might fill the mind. Instead of being swept away by these reactions, presence allows us to watch them like clouds passing through the sky. We see that these thoughts and emotions are temporary energy patterns. They are not who we are. This shift from identification to observation creates space between us and the pain, and in that space lies the power to forgive. Presence also reveals the humanity of the other person. Often, we hold on to unforgiveness because we see the other person only as the villain in our story. But when we become present, we realize that they too were acting from their level of consciousness at the time. They may have been unconscious, driven by their own pain, fear, or conditioning. This doesn't excuse harmful actions, but it helps us see that what they did was a reflection of their state of being, not a measure of our worth. This understanding opens the heart and softens the rigid walls of resentment. Forgiveness is often thought of as a decision of the mind, but true forgiveness is an experience of the heart. Presence quiets the mental noise long enough for the heart to speak. In that silence, we might feel compassion arise, not necessarily for what happened, but for the shared human experience of suffering. We see that holding on to anger keeps us trapped, while letting go restores our peace. Presence becomes the bridge that takes us from pain to freedom. This is why Eckhart Tolle emphasizes the importance of awareness. Without awareness, we remain stuck in the loop of blame and self-pity. With awareness, we take responsibility for our inner state. We stop waiting for the past to be different and instead choose to respond to the present moment with consciousness. This is not about condoning hurtful behavior or pretending the pain never happened. It is about freeing ourselves from the mental prison that keeps us reliving it. In presence, forgiveness is not a struggle, but a natural consequence of being connected to who we truly are. At the deepest level of presence, we realize that nothing can touch the essence of our being. The hurt may have affected our circumstances, our emotions, or even our body, but the core of who we are remains untouched. From this place of wholeness, we can release the past without fear of losing ourselves. Presence enables forgiveness because it brings us back to our true nature, spacious, peaceful, and free. Gratitude has the remarkable power to transform the way we experience life, especially when it comes to our relationships and the challenges they bring. When we are caught in disappointment, conflict, or pain, the mind tends to focus on what went wrong, what is missing, and what we wish had been different. This narrow focus amplifies suffering and keeps us trapped in a cycle of negativity. Gratitude breaks this cycle by gently shifting our attention from what we lack to what we already have. It does not mean denying pain or pretending that everything is perfect. Instead, it means choosing to see the gifts hidden in our experiences, even the difficult ones. When we practice gratitude, we begin to recognize that every person and every situation has played a role in our growth. Even those who have hurt us have often been our greatest teachers. They may have shown us where we still carry unhealed wounds, taught us about boundaries, or pushed us towards self-discovery. Gratitude does not justify their actions, but it reframes the story so that we no longer see ourselves as powerless victims. We start to see ourselves as participants in a much larger process of growth and awakening. This shift in perspective is deeply empowering. It moves us from asking, "Why did this happen to me?" to asking, "What can I learn from this?" The first question keeps us stuck in blame and resistance, while the second opens us to possibility and growth. Gratitude allows us to step out of the role of the sufferer and step into the role of the conscious creator of our inner state. The more we cultivate gratitude, the more we find meaning in the very experiences we once resented. Gratitude also changes the energy we bring into our relationships. When we focus only on someone's flaws or mistakes, our interactions are often colored by irritation, judgment, or resentment. But when we intentionally notice what we appreciate about them, their kindness, their efforts, their presence in our lives, the relationship begins to feel lighter. This does not mean ignoring problems or pretending that harmful behavior is acceptable, but it means seeing the whole picture rather than just the painful parts. People often respond positively when they feel seen and appreciated, and gratitude can create space for deeper connection and healing. On a practical level, gratitude brings us into the present moment. It makes us aware of the small blessings we often overlook. The breath we are taking right now, the roof over our head, the friend who listened to us, the lesson we just learned. This practice keeps us grounded in reality instead of being consumed by mental stories about the past or future. It also helps dissolve the mental habit of comparing ourselves with others and feeling like life owes us something more. Gratitude reminds us that life is already offering so much. Eckhart Tolle often speaks about the importance of accepting the present moment as it is. Gratitude is a form of that acceptance, but with an added dimension of appreciation. It not only says, "This moment is enough," but also, "This moment is a gift." As we strengthen this way of seeing, even challenges become opportunities to deepen our presence and expand our capacity for love. Gratitude shifts our perspective from scarcity to abundance, from pain to possibility, and from resistance to flow. It fills the heart with peace and opens the door for forgiveness to take root. Because we no longer see the past as something we must fight against, we see it as part of the journey that brought us to where we are today. Real transformation in our relationships does not begin with changing other people. It begins with changing ourselves. This is one of the most powerful teachings Eckhart Tolle offers. We often think that if the other person would just apologize, behave differently, or treat us the way we want, everything would be better. But this way of thinking keeps our happiness dependent on something outside of us, something we cannot control. Transformation truly happens when we turn inward and recognize that our reactions, our thoughts, and our emotions are the only things we have power over. When we shift within, the way we experience others shifts as well. And this often changes the dynamic of the relationship more than any attempt to force the other person to change. The first step in inner transformation is awareness. We begin to notice our habitual reactions. The irritation that rises when someone interrupts us, the anger that flares up when we feel misunderstood, the sadness that lingers after a disagreement. In the past, we may have been completely identified with these emotions, letting them dictate our words and actions. But awareness allows us to pause and observe. This pause is powerful. It creates a space where choice becomes possible. Instead of reacting automatically, we can respond consciously. Transformation also involves letting go of the stories we tell ourselves about others. The mind loves to label people. She is selfish. He never listens. They always hurt me. These labels solidify our sense of being right and keep us stuck in the same patterns. When we become present, we start to see that these are just mental constructs. The person in front of us is not just the story we've built about them. They are a human being who is also struggling, learning, and growing. This shift softens our perception and allows compassion to arise. Another essential part of inner transformation is just taking responsibility for our inner state. This does not mean blaming ourselves for what others do, but it means acknowledging that we are the only ones who can choose how we feel in this moment. If we wait for someone else to change before we feel at peace, we may be waiting forever. But if we cultivate peace within ourselves, Through presence, forgiveness, and gratitude, we no longer depend on others for our happiness. This is an empowering realization because it means our well-being is always in our hands. When transformation happens within, relationships often begin to mirror that change. The energy we bring to our interactions becomes calmer, less reactive, and more open. People may sense this shift and respond in kind, but even if they do not, we remain anchored in our own inner peace. This is why Tolle says that presence is the greatest gift you can offer another person. Your presence brings clarity, understanding, and love into the space, whether or not the other person is aware of it. Ultimately, inner transformation is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to who we truly are. Beneath the layers of pain, judgment, and ego, there is a deeper self that is already whole and peaceful. As we awaken to that deeper self, we stop seeking completion through others and instead meet them from a place of fullness. This changes everything. Transformation that begins within radiates outward, touching every interaction and turning relationships into opportunities for growth and deeper connection. The world outside may not change immediately, but the world inside becomes spacious, free, and filled with possibility. And that is where true transformation begins. Forgiveness and gratitude are like two wings of the same bird. Together they allow the heart to rise above pain and resentment into freedom and peace. Forgiveness clears the emotional debris of the past, while gratitude fills the present moment with meaning and appreciation. When one is present without the other, the process of inner healing feels incomplete. Forgiveness without gratitude can feel hollow, as if we are simply letting go but not learning or growing. Gratitude without forgiveness can feel forced, as though we are pretending to be thankful while still carrying unhealed wounds. When they work together, however, they create a powerful transformation that changes the way we experience ourselves and our relationships. Forgiveness is the first step. It is the release. When we forgive, we are saying that we will no longer allow the past to control how we feel right now. This is not always easy, because the mind wants to hold on to the story of what happened. It wants to prove that we were right and that the other person was wrong. But in holding on, we remain tied to the pain. Forgiveness cuts that tie. It does not excuse what was done, but simply refuses to carry the burden any longer. This clearing creates space in the heart, and into that space gratitude can flow. Gratitude is the second step. It is the expansion. Once we have released the heaviness of resentment, we are able to see the bigger picture. We begin to notice that even the most painful experiences shaped us in some way. Perhaps they taught us strength, self-respect, patience, or compassion. Gratitude transforms the story from one of victimhood into one of growth. It helps us to not only forgive, but to appreciate how every person and situation contributed to our journey of becoming more conscious. The combination of forgiveness and gratitude also dissolves the illusion of separation between us and others. When we forgive, we stop defining the other person by their mistake. When we feel gratitude, we start to see them as a teacher, however unwilling or unconscious they may have been. This does not mean that we must stay in unhealthy relationships, but it does mean that we can leave behind the bitterness and carry forward the wisdom. This frees our energy and allows us to engage with the world from a place of openness rather than defensiveness. Together, forgiveness and gratitude break the cycle of negativity that often keeps relationships locked in conflict. If we only forgive but remain bitter, the relationship cannot truly heal. If we only feel grateful but secretly resentful, the gratitude feels shallow. When both are present, the relationship is transformed because we are transformed. We meet others not from the pain of the past, but from the presence of now, which is always fresh and new. Eckhart Tolle reminds us that presence is the key to both forgiveness and gratitude. In presence, we are no longer consumed by the story in our heads. We can feel the pain, release it through forgiveness, and then see the hidden blessing through gratitude. This creates a deep inner harmony that radiates outward, touching everyone we encounter. Forgiveness and gratitude together form a complete circle. We let go of what no longer serves us, and we welcome what nourishes us. The result is freedom, freedom to love, to connect, and to live fully in the present moment without the weight of yesterday holding us back. Presence is the soil in which true love grows. Without presence, love becomes entangled with need, fear, control, and attachment. What many people call love is often a mix of emotional dependency and unconscious patterns that fluctuate between pleasure and pain. Presence changes this dynamic completely. When we are present, we are no longer looking to others to complete us or fix our inner emptiness. Instead, we bring a sense of wholeness into the relationship, which allows love to flow freely, without conditions. Being present means fully inhabiting the moment, aware of our thoughts, emotions, and reactions as they arise, but not being consumed by them. In relationships, this creates a space where we can truly see and hear the other person. Most of the time, when someone is speaking to us, our mind is already busy preparing a reply, defending itself, or recalling old hurts. Presence interrupts this habit and allows us to simply be there, attentive and open. This is one of the greatest gifts we can offer to another person, the gift of our undivided attention. When someone feels fully seen, without judgment, love becomes possible. Presence also prevents us from turning relationships into a battlefield for the past. Without awareness, old wounds and unresolved emotions constantly surface in the form of blame, criticism, or withdrawal. We unconsciously project our pain onto the other person and expect them to make us feel better. But when we are present, we recognize these triggers as opportunities to become more conscious rather than opportunities to attack. We pause, breathe, and feel what is arising inside us before reacting. This choice not only reduces conflict, but deepens intimacy, because we are meeting the other person from a place of honesty rather than reactivity. Love rooted in presence is not dependent on circumstances. It does not disappear when the other person makes a mistake or fails to meet our expectations. This kind of love is spacious, forgiving, and compassionate because it is not tied to ego's demands. Presence allows us to experience love not just as an emotion that comes and goes, but as a state of being that is always available. It is a love that says, "I am here with you, as you are, in this moment." Another gift of presence is that it brings lightness and playfulness into relationships. When we are no longer lost in the mind, we stop taking everything so personally and so seriously. We can laugh together, enjoy simple moments, and appreciate each other's uniqueness. This natural joy strengthens the bond between people and makes the relationship a source of renewal rather than stress. Ultimately, presence is what allows love to be pure. It removes the layers of fear, resentment, and judgment that cloud the heart. It reminds us that we do not need to wait for the future to feel loved. Love can be experienced right now, simply by being here. Eckhart Tolle often says that the most important question you can ask in a relationship is not, "How can I get what I want?" but, "Can I be present with this person?" Because when you are present, love is already there. Presence is the foundation upon which love can thrive, grow, and transform not only your relationships, but your entire experience of life.